Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of All Queued Up, the podcast, review podcast, very specifically, tied to streaming services like Netflix, Amazon Prime, HBO Max, etc., etc. I'm your host, Greg Dietz. With me always is Maya Don Fisher. How's your week been?
Pretty fantastic.
That's great. That's good.
Yeah,
Last week
yeah.
wasn't.
No, last week was bad. This week was good. Starting off on the left foot because I don't have a right one, obviously.
Nice.
The Raiders won their game and made the playoffs, and super excited about that. And Carr's going to be leading them, and I'm really thrilled about that because the only year they've made the playoffs in the past 19 years since their Super Bowl loss in 2002. That was the year that they were 12-3 and playing Indianapolis, and Carr's ankle got broke in the fourth quarter, and they finished 12-4 and lost in the first round with their backup quarterback. So it's like he's finally getting to go to the playoffs after so much of a crazy, tumultuous season with all they've been through with the controversy and the tragedy of the receiver that he was involved in with the death of that poor young woman and her dog. And, just first time a interim head coach has been brought in the middle of a season and taken over and actually gotten a team to the playoffs. So that alone, he should get Coach of the Year for riding that ship. I'm telling
you. So one of the funniest things to me about football, or I don't know, mainly football in this instance, because I don't really watch closely, if that makes sense.
No, you're a casual observer. You watch on occasion with your family.
Yeah,
because your family's diehard Raiders fans, like I am.
Diehard. Because I'm not even you could call me a Niner fan, but that's a very loose term. The thing is, I like watching it. I like watching sports. I just don't care to have a dog or a leg in the race. And rivalries are always incredibly funny to me because I'm trying to figure out how to say this correctly because I'm trying to get my point across. As somebody who was a Niner fan, still is a Niner, I don't know if it is a Niner fan, I don't see the point in having a rivalry to the Raiders.
No, that was more of a cross town, cross the bay kind of thing.
Well,
they really don't have that anymore.
Well, yeah, like if there's the Battle of the Bay game, I get it. But it's like when I hear a Niner fan hate the Raiders, I'm like, for what? You're not in the same fucking division. You literally
not even in the same conference.
That's what I meant was conference. I just say it wrong every time.
It happens.
But yeah, like I don't get it. You're not together in that regard. So both teams are together in that regard. So I don't understand why it's why it's necessary to kind of like say I hate the Raiders if you're a Niner fan and vice versa. It doesn't make any sense to me. Now, having rivalries in your own conference makes perfect sense to me. Sitting there saying something along the lines of I don't like the Niners fans hate Green Bay or hate Seattle or some shit like that. Or both the Raiders and the Niners saying like we don't like the Cowboys. I get that. Less so for the Niners?
No, the Raiders. Because the Cowboys are in the NFC with the
That's Niners. What yeah. But like Raiders fans should be like, I don't like the Cowboys. And that's as far as that conversation goes. Whereas Niners fans should absolutely.
As a card carrying member of Raider Nation, you are legally obligated and required to hate 4 teams in the NFL. All other teams are hate at your own discretion, but the 4 teams you must hate are Kansas City, the Chiefs, the Denver Broncos, and the Los Angeles Chargers. And outside of the divisional rivals in those three teams, the New England Patriots, because of the tuck rule.
Which I actually mentioned.
And Tom Brady by proxy.
I mentioned that to Andy a while, I want to say like a month ago, that I always find it funny that you guys still hold on to that whole game, like the snow game and the tuck rule and all that kind of shit.
Oh, it's traumatic.
And he goes, are you kidding? They fucking should hold on to that. Like they had to make a whole new rule in the NFL for that. And I was like, oh, I didn't know that.
Yes.
I thought you guys just got fucked over on one game and you guys were just holding on to it.
No. I mean, the game was won. It was in hand. They should have had that.
Yeah, I didn't know they made a whole new rule. My argument wouldn't have happened, or not argument. I guess my point wouldn't have started had I known that. The whole like aspect of a new rule being created because you guys got fucked over on that. But but this also doesn't take away my point that sports fans will hold on to something like that for fucking ever. And not just that, but like just something in general. Like,
oh yeah. Look at the Boston Red Sox, the curse of the Bambino.
Yeah.
You know, it's like they didn't. What was the last time they won a series? You know, and then when they got rid of Babe Ruth, they didn't win again until 2002, 3. Forgive me for not knowing that off the top of my head, but you know, the curse of the goat with the White Sox, or White Sox, wrong Chicago team, the Cubs. Look how long it took them to win another World Series. Over 100 fucking years.
I don't
know. They hold on to that shit and they believe in that shit. Sports fans are very superstitious.
Very. Which is arguably one of the reasons that I have a hard time with sports too, is that, you know, like I was trying to explain to my little brother because he was sitting there saying like they have to yell, kick it, whoever the kicker happens to be. I guess for a while it was kick it fat ass because the guy was like kind of chunky.
Oh, Sebastian Janikowski.
Yes. I couldn't remember his name.
They called him, his nickname was Seabass.
All right. Well, I know that my family personally, I don't know about anybody else. My family personally was like, they would always yell, kick it fat ass before he kicked it, and he'd make it. Except for the times that he didn't make it.
Yeah. It's like, you know, you can believe that you have a lucky jersey or a lucky hat or a lucky pair of socks, you know, and if they win, you can say, yeah, I was part of that. But if you lose, it's like, oh, it didn't work. But they still wear the shit again.
Yeah.
But if they don't have it on, they're like, oh no, it's because I didn't have this on. Never mind the factor of the players on the court or the field or the diamond or the ice, whatever respective sport you're watching and playing. You know, the people directly involved, that's the outcome deciders. It's not because of something that you wear or a ritual that you do, but rationale goes out the window when it comes to many sports fans.
Well, this is like I said, this is what I was trying to point out to my little brother, because they were saying this kind of stuff, and Jeff, my little brother, was like, "You don't believe in superstitions, you don't believe in jinxes and stuff like that." I was like, "No, I don't." Well, I don't know why this is so suddenly somehow new. And he goes, "Well, you know, it's worked." And I go, "Okay, let's say, for example, you yell, kick it fat ass every time he kicks, right? Yeah. And he successfully makes about 75% of those. Why are you ignoring the 25% that it didn't work? Like, you're choosing to ignore it." And he says, "Because it works more than it doesn't." And I go, that doesn't track. That's not how numbers and logic works. And I go, "Okay, let's do this, Jeff. Do you believe in the zodiac? Do you believe that the stars and celestial bodies have an effect on humans' emotions throughout the day? Do you believe that when Mercury is in retrograde that it has an effect on your day?" "Well, of course not." I go, then how is this any different? How is you sitting at home watching the game on TV have an effect on what happens in that field? And he was like, no, I get you, Greg. And I was like, I'm not saying don't wear your stuff. I'm not saying don't have your traditions, but don't come at me with that shit and say, like, I know that it works, because I'm going to kind of look at you like an idiot. I just am.
Yeah.
Like, it's a bizarre, a very bizarre kind of like direction for me in general. And I'll never quite understand it. And I've been subject to this kind of shit before. Like, I don't remember the not the most recent one, but the one before it when the Niners went to the Super Bowl.
A couple of years ago.
No.
Oh.
I'm talking about before a couple years ago.
Oh, okay.
Like a solid 6-7 years ago.
Back when I don't think they went to the Super Bowl. I think they missed going to the Super Bowl.
No, I remember very specifically being the Super Bowl, and there's a reason why. Because Andy's house was packed to the gills with people, all Niner fans. I was sitting in a specific chair, with not a super comfortable chair.
It would have been 2012? They have been in 81, 84, 88, 89, 94. Those are the ones they won. Which ones did they go to?
It was definitely while I was friends with Andy. So
yeah, 2012 and 2019 is the only times they've been since 94.
Then it was okay. Then it was the 2012 one. But yeah, I'm sitting in his house. I'm sitting in a specific chair, not a super comfortable chair, but comfortable enough. And they score a touchdown. I get up to get food. They get scored on. So you can guess what happened next.
It's because you got up to go get food. They got scored on, Greg.
So I had to sit there for the entire game. Now let's put this in perspective. Did the Niners win?
Nope.
So how does any of this make sense? That's my point entirely. Like, superstitions to me are always incredibly funny because humans in general, and this is outside of sports, humans in general love to see patterns where there are not.
Oh, yeah.
And what makes that incredibly fascinating to me is that this then bleeds into sports. It bleeds heavily into sports. So much so that, you know, when the superstition doesn't work, it's ignored entirely.
Mm-hmm.
And then people want to know, like, how are there flat earthers and shit like that? It's the same thing. It's the same thought process. If you believe in it hard enough, it becomes real in your mind. If you tell a lie to somebody enough times, it becomes the truth. And it's the same mentality. So my brain doesn't work like that. It can't work like that. And when I'm playing games with certain friends, and I seriously said to Andy, because there's a map that I fall out on very frequently, like, it's the fucking snowball survival one.
Mm-hmm.
I had said out loud, I'm not going to fall off of this one because I'm because it's easy mode, where like the center doesn't have the bricks that fall away.
Yeah.
I still got hit and got knocked out. So then it became this, like, I jinxed it. And that I fall out on it every single time because I've jinxed it or something to that effect. And I'm like, okay, but what about all the times that I have successfully stayed on? Like, you see how this logic doesn't track?
Yeah.
So that's my big thing about, like, superstitions, is if you sit there and say, oh, I still chant this certain thing when they're doing a certain thing, or I wear this certain the clothing, or like, I have fun watching it in this perspective, or whatever. great. I genuinely think that's fun. Like, I understand why that's fun. But please don't tell me that it's real or whatever, because it's not.
Yeah.
But all of that being said, I thought it was really funny that both the Niner and Raider game came down to OT scores.
Oh, yeah. It was a wild day of football all around in general. It was an exciting day league-wide. I mean, there was a lot of shit going on. And I watched through NFL Red Zone. I don't know if you're familiar with that channel.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. You know, every touchdown, every game. You know, you're always seeing action as it happens on the field, no matter, you know, from various different games. And, you know, in the late window, you get to see a lot more consistent from usually just 3 or 4 games instead of 8 or 9 that are going on. So you see a lot more of actual gameplay from specific games. Anyway, sidetracking there.
That's all right. No, it's we really only have one thing to review today for anybody listening. We're
Yeah,
gonna
yeah.
review the chapter 3 of the book of Boba Fett. That's it. We didn't have another conversation, so kind of just killing time talking about this is totally fine.
Yeah. But it was just exciting because you're seeing, you know, here's Indianapolis and Jacksonville, where they haven't won since like 2014. And they've got a so-so quarterback in Carson Wentz. And everybody's like, oh, nobody wants to face Indy in the playoffs. They're a hot team. To now, nobody's going to face Indy in the playoffs because they did not play well. They got owned, absolutely owned. And seeing the drama unfold and how the fucking outcomes and matchups, and it's like, okay, here Indianapolis is going to lose now. That means the Raiders don't even have to win to get in, when before they had to win to get in. But
Yeah.
you know, now it's like, oh, this opens up the door for Pittsburgh to make it in, as long as the Raiders and the Chargers don't end in a tie. You know, so here's all this drama unfolding, and it came down to the last literal second of the game in overtime for the Raiders and Chargers for the AFC playoff picture to actually be completely established. It was wild, and it was a fun day of, you know, from the 1 o'clock games until that game ended. It was almost midnight here, so it was like 11 hours of just nonstop me like eating it up. Because
Well, that was really funny to me because I had to work during the Niner game, right?
mm-hmm.
And I get ESPN notifications, and it was just like constantly like, oh, the Niners are like down a bunch. And then I look back and I'm like, oh, it's tied again. And then I saw it go into overtime. I'm like, God damn, the hell happened?
Yeah.
But they sorry. I had read that sorry everybody, we record this in the mornings, and I woke up like I've been up for maybe an hour and a half ish. One of the things that made me laugh about the Raider game, because like I said, I was just watching it with my folks. Like, they were having a great old time. I think I sent you that video of my mom pacing.
Yeah.
Well, my
Love
dad,
how
like,
much your mom gets into it.
what's so funny about that is my dad is totally into it too, but he doesn't have the body reaction.
Yeah.
So he's just lounging in his chair, you know, the blanket on, and I'm like, all right, man, you enjoy your game.
Hey, he can do a fist pump and a shout.
He claps and yells and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But what I thought was so interesting was that, like, apparently the Raiders were going to go for the tie. They had planned it out. They were going to go for the tie. They were just going to kneel it a bunch of times and yada yada. But the problem is the Chargers called a timeout, and that changed their.
Well, it wasn't so much that they were planning for the tie. They were they said, well, we would have played, to try to get downfield, but once they called timeout, they were absolutely determined. Yeah, let's win this thing. They just it knocked all notions of playing for a tie out of their system, which is good because the motto since the Al Davis era, started back in the 60s, has been just win, baby. And I
Well, I
saw
think
people in the stands holding signs like, take the tie. And I'm like, no, fuck no, don't take the tie. Win the fucking game. What kind of fan are you?
a logical one to take out another team entirely, but like I get the desire to want to win. Like, don't get me wrong, that's competitive nature 101, but the tie would have been just as good. Like,
No, it wouldn't, because if we had tied, I'm part of the fucking team. If the Raiders have tied,
that's another
then
thing
they would
fucking
have.
sports fans do. That's funny.
Yeah, I know. It's like we. It's like, what do you mean? You're a fan. You're not part of the organization. If you're part of the organization, then you can say we. But I try so hard consciously to not do that. But yeah, as the if they had tied, they would have had to play Kansas City. They would have been the 7th seed. They would have had to play Kansas City in the first round. Not what they wanted to do. And the Chargers would have gotten the 5th seed, and the Chargers would be playing in Cincinnati. Because the Raiders won, the Chargers are out completely. And Pittsburgh squeaked in. Pittsburgh now has to play at Kansas City, and the Raiders are going to be playing Saturday in Cincinnati, which is a better seeding matchup.
Gotcha. Okay, didn't know that. See,
Yep.
that's logical. That what you just did there makes sense to me. There's an actual strategy to the benefit of them winning versus taking the tie.
Yes.
And that's what needs to be presented to me versus like, just win, baby. And I'm like, okay, yeah, just win, whatever. Like, it just seems greedy at that point when you say just win. And I'm like, it's more than just winning. Sports is like, there's a whole movie based on fucking sports in that direction. So,
oh yeah. I mean, there's definitely strategies involved. I mean, would I have been satisfied with the tie? I'd have been happy to be in the playoffs. Yeah. Would I prefer to see a better matchup in the first round? I mean, Cincinnati is going to be a tough game. But they've played Cincinnati this year. They got drilled by the Chiefs twice this year. They got drilled by Cincinnati, but they're healthier now. And Cincinnati's healthy. Both teams are at pretty much full health, so it'll be an exciting game to watch. And I'm hoping for a positive outcome. I'm hoping for a Raiders win. But
I always like to see the Raiders succeed and win and whatnot. But it is the playoffs, and if we're being honest, like, you guys are going to have to, both the Niners and the Raiders are going to have to play their asses off, considering a lot of the teams that made it to the playoffs and have a technical bye week this upcoming week are arguably better than the Niners and Raiders. So,
well, I mean,
logistics.
You're not wrong, but also the Raiders do have wins over some of those teams that are in the playoffs this year.
Also, the argument can always be made. Any given Sunday, like,
exactly,
like it can happen. I've seen it happen before. I've been, not by my own choice, been watching sports for a long time, and I've seen crazier shit happen. So, like, how many seasons have there been a wild card team that made it to the Super Bowl and won? A lot, an actual lot. So it can happen.
But yeah, out of the playoff teams, the Raiders they beat Pittsburgh this year. They beat Philadelphia this year. They beat Dallas this year on Thanksgiving. That was a great game.
I told you that my brothers went to the game on Sunday, right?
Yeah. So they've beaten 3 out of the 14 teams that are in the field of play, and they've only lost to one of the teams that are in the field of play, and that be Kansas City. So.
It's so hard to also tell people like.
Oh wait, they lost to Cincinnati too. Sorry.
It's also hard to tell people like I don't dislike sports. It's not like I hate sports. I just don't. I don't care about the hardcore fandoms, and I don't care about the stats and shit.
Yeah.
I get why people would. I totally understand it. Like I'm not sitting there saying like nobody should do it. I just personally don't fucking care. And so if you ever talk with sports with me and I just don't know anything, that's why. But I will be watching the Niner game. I will be watching the Raider game. I want to see both teams succeed, technically. I mean, more so the Niners than the Raiders. But that's, that's a bias situation if you catch my drift, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, so fucking California sports was interesting. Football specifically. It's really funny playing with those Canadians that I do on Fall Guys because they all are huge into hockey.
Oh yeah.
So I'll be talking to them on the phone or playing the game with them, and they're watching the fucking Leafs game or some shit like that. And then all of a sudden, one of it, like Brendan specifically or newbie, he'll all of a sudden just be like, "Fuck yeah, another one!" And I'm like, "Oh, Leafs scored." But the other one is we play with a guy from the UK, and if we play fall ball, which has giant soccer balls on it, we'll intentionally like overemphasize the word soccer.
Oh yeah, because outside of the U.S., it's football. Everywhere else in the world.
Yep. Well, not true. A lot of other countries call it soccer too because that's how it was introduced to them. Yeah. Not every country calls it soccer, but
for a huge part of the world, though, it is football.
Yeah. A much larger part of the world calls it football or football. And then, like, because that's the thing is that what the UK guy will call it is he'll whenever the football drops down, the actual oblong football, he'll be like, "Oh, the American football dropped," which always makes me laugh. But yeah, sports has always been fascinating to me, just from the perspective of how much people give a shit about it. Because to me, sports is pure entertainment. That's all it's for. There's nothing else from sports other than entertainment. And I think I've made a joke to my brother because him and my brother were both wearing their Raider jerseys. And they took a picture in a place with a bunch of other people who were all dressed in Raider outfits. And I was like, "Oh, they're all dressed as their favorite character. That's cute." And he looks up at me, he's like, "Oh, it's 100% cosplay. Like, there's no arguing there." And I'm like, "All right, I'm glad we're on the same page."
I mean, it's true though. I always find it funny because I'm an enigma in the sports world and the collecting world because I'm one of those rare crossovers that are diehard into both. Like I'm diehard into mini painting, I'm diehard into toy collecting, I'm diehard into model building, but I'm also a diehard sports fan. I'm not your typical fucking nerd.
I do find a lot more nerds enjoy sports though.
Yeah, they do, but not to the extent that
not diehard.
Yeah, and but it always strikes me as funny as like these prototypical jock sports fans who are all like fucking D&D nerds, but yet they've got their fucking man caves decked out in team colors and they're dressed as in
or
their
play
team
fantasy
colors
football
and play fantasy football, yeah, like we do. And congratulations on your season.
It wasn't my season.
Well, but yeah, it's that fucking attitude is like nerds, looking down on it. You're doing the same shit in just a different fashion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's why like maybe I have such an apprehensive towards people who like sports because those are the ones that made my fucking high school life a goddamn nightmare. which is unfortunate for a lot of people. But yeah, the jocks were the fucking worst, and I hated it. So anyway, that's a different story. Well, why don't
we
we
won't get into today.
Yeah. Well, why don't we go ahead and get into episode 3 or chapter 3 of the book of Boba Fett, which, like I said, is the only thing we're reviewing today. Which we'll probably end the podcast like right after we're done reviewing it because we got nothing else, and we did just spend 30 minutes talking about football.
We don't normally talk for 30 minutes before the review. Instead, we're doing it at we flipped it up this time. It's weird.
It was definitely a
departure from the norm.
Not intentional, is what I was meaning. Like, I didn't expect us to talk about sports for 30 minutes, which is very uncommon for me. But anyway. So yeah, Book of Boba Fett, episode 3, picks up from last week where, you know, as we said, there are 2 stories going on right now. There's Boba Fett and his life after escaping the Sarlacc pit, and then his life after, you know, the story with Mandalorian, where he's on Jabba's throne. And we get a lot less of the past in this episode. A lot less of it.
Mm-hmm.
But the long and short of that story is that he goes to talk to what is that fucking syndicate?
The Pikes.
The Pikes, thank you. He goes to talk to the Pikes, makes a deal with them, goes back to his Tusken Raider village, and it's been completely destroyed, and everyone's killed by the biker gang that he fucked over in the last episode. You know, seeing the repercussions of his actions, in a sense. And that was really it we got of the past. I think there was something else, but I'm drawing a blank. You're a lot more fresh on it than I am, but
that was essentially it. One thing you do get to see though, as he's riding the bantha into Mos Eisley, there was a Mandalorian cameo.
Was there?
Amy Sedaris' character and her 3 pit droids.
I missed her. Where the fuck was she?
They just walking in the background as he's riding into Mos Eisley on the bantha.
Oh, that's awesome. I missed that entirely. I'll have to go back and
I don't think it was actually her, but it was meant to be her character for sure.
Gotcha.
With her 3 pit droids.
Well, it wouldn't surprise me if she did show up in this episode because we got quite a bit of cameos. The first one being, I'd say, Stephen Root.
Oh, absolutely. I was like, oh my God, it's Stephen Root.
Yeah, it was awesome. But yeah, he shows up as a moisture farmer who is pissed off that some...
Not a moisture farmer, but a moisture farmer investor. And he's basically a fucking one of those... what's the word I'm looking for, Greg?
I don't know.
He's one of those venture capitalists.
Yeah. He's Well, we don't find that out until later anyway, because the way that he's kind of describing his job to Boba Fett, trying to get Boba to do something about it. He then goes into town and talks to this, I don't even want to call them a biker gang, but they're biker gang.
Yeah, they're a biker gang like the fucking... Remember that fucking video from that one musical group, Land Steal My Sunshine?
Yeah.
They're a biker gang like that group was a biker gang. Fucking riding around on scooters and shit.
Yeah. But yeah, he goes and talks to them, and they're just like, he's overcharging for water. And it's hard to find jobs because of something, and because of the syndicates and whatnot. And so Boba Fett offers them a job to work for him, essentially, as not as bodyguards per se, but definitely like enforcers. But then Stephen Root comes out, and Stephen's like, they stole. And he's like, why are you overcharging for water? So that was, I love that little scene.
Yeah.
I think that's about the time that we got the past. We got the shot of the past, and
yeah. After that, he goes and back to his back to tank to rest up and heal. And that's when we got the flashback, which is interrupted.
Now, before we get into what he's interrupted by, I have to give this show massive credit for two things. First and foremost, practical effects all over the place. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what we're about to talk about is just a dude in a fucking suit, which is awesome. But did you notice that whenever they do a shot outside of Jabba's palace, or now Boba's palace, or outside of Mos Eisley, and there's an animal of some kind, it's actually stop motion?
Yeah, I noticed that. Like when they had the Bomar monk droid.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, it's got that jittery fucking stop motion type animation. I was like, that's so cool. Now, they could have done that CGI. It's totally possible. I mean, for the Lego movie, they totally like made it look like it was stop motion, even though it's not. So, you know, it's totally possible to make it look that way. But the fact that they even tried to make it look that way is so awesome.
Yeah.
And I have no idea if it is animated that way, but the practical effects in this is awesome. I like it. It looks all practical to me. So, what is he interrupted by in his back to take?
His back to tank is opened, and he is jerked out of it by the Wookiee, former gladiator, Black Chrysanthemum.
I didn't know his name.
Yeah, Black Chrysanthemum. They actually say his name. They just call him Chrysanthemum, though.
I didn't catch that. Was that last week or this week?
No, that was this week.
Jesus. But yeah, that fight was awesome. So like the Let My Sunshine, or what the fuck it was, biker gang. They come in shortly after Boba's just being fucking literally tossed around by this Wookiee.
Tossed around like a rag doll.
Like a
And
fuck, yeah.
And you get to see Tamura Morrison, he's basically fighting in his boxer shorts. And people are like, have been jokingly calling him Dad Bod Boba Fett. He's not fat. He's stout. He's in good shape.
Yeah, he's just built like a rectangle.
He's a thick individual.
Yeah. Which is a lot more realistic to a sense of strength, like I think we've discussed this in the past, but look at strongman competitions. Those
Mm-hmm.
dudes are not triangles. They're not bodybuilders. They all have a little bit of a gut because, they eat a lot. They have to eat a lot if they're going to fucking build muscle like that.
To quote Nick Frost from fucking Paul, it's not fat, it's power.
Yeah, 100%. But yeah, so this fight was actually fucking awesome. Like I really enjoyed it. It was practical. It was just action packed, and they ended up winning. They ended up capturing the fucking Wookiee because Shennick Fan comes in and she's like, "Everyone move back!" and she fucking hits that button and he drops into the Rancor pit.
The Rancorless Rancor pit,
right?
Or is it?
So yeah, shortly. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, shortly after that, that's you see Boba and Shand. They're sitting at a feasting table, and she's like happily eating up fucking game bird or whatever it is, and the droids are bringing more food, and he's like, "No more food. That's enough food." He's all upset. He's like, "I need to show my hand. Somebody, or I need to make react to this. Somebody's trying to kill me. It's the Hutts." And then the Hutts show up, the twins, and they're apologizing for sending Chrysanthemum to attempt to kill Boba Fett. And they say, "We've been lied to, both of us." And he's like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Go talk to the mayor. The mayor's played us." He's like, "As a gift, you can keep the Wookiee. And here's this other gift. Oh, it's a Rancor, complete with a Danny Trejo Rancor keeper."
So I want to point something out about this movie or this show. Something small. Actually, go ahead and talk. Yeah, because this I'll bring it up because okay.
Go ahead.
one of the characters in this show is actually a friend of the people at Trash Film Orgy. I've met the dude in real life, like often, frequently.
Oh yeah.
But we have to talk about the Rancor situation first because it doesn't make sense if I was just looking at the cast. Anyway, well, okay, so the Rancor scene. Not only has this show given insight to the Tusken Raiders and how they function and made them given them more humanity, if you will. That's the best way I can put it. Now it's done it with the Rancor.
Yeah. And I
The
love the shout out to where he talks about, it's been said that the witches of Dathomir have ridden these into battle. And I'm like, oh, that's from straight up from the fucking expanded universe in the books, the witches of Dathomir.
So the witches of Dathomir actually appear in
they appear in Fallen Order.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But they weren't riding Rancors.
No, Rancors were on the planet though. Like you
Yep.
had to fight Rancors on Dathomir when you're playing the game.
Yep. Great game.
But yeah, fucking fantastic game.
Platinum that thing in under 5 days.
I like how people call it a Souls-like game, and I'm like, it's not very Souls-like. it's just kind of hard. Like, put that bad boy on easy. Trust me, it's fine. Anyway, the like Danny Trejo's character, the Rancor Keeper, kind of puts perspective on like that shot from Return of the Jedi when the Rancor Keeper in that part of the movie like is devastated that his Rancor died.
Yeah.
Like it makes fucking sense now. And like I'm fucking stoked that we get to see this Rancor more in the future. And that Danny goddamn Trejo, like I love that Robert Rodriguez is just like, hey friend.
Yeah.
Want to be in Star Wars? Oh, it's so awesome. But yeah, so after that scene, like the Matt Berry droid comes in and says, the mayor is leaving for a certain period of time or something like that, like for some 10 days.
Yeah, 20 days.
20 days. So him and Fennec head to the mayor's office, and this is the part that I wanted to bring up. So the receptionist at the desk.
Oh, the guy that looks like Brian O'Halloran from Clerks with a mullet.
Yeah, so his name is Galen Howard, and early Trash Film Orgy movies star him.
Oh,
that dude is from Sacramento, which is
pretty fucking interesting.
Watching it, I was like, I'm watching the fucking movie, and I'm going, oh, not movie, Jesus, I'm watching the show, and I'm like, why does he look so fucking familiar? Like my brain just wasn't making the connection. I was just now looking through the credits on IMDb, and I'm like, holy shit.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I know that he was in the other episode too.
Yeah, he was in last week's episode too.
Yeah, let me look at his fucking. Damn, he has been in 123 things. He was in 2 episodes of Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Holy shit. But yeah, if I go to his like first movies, I'm pretty confident. Yeah, Monster from Bikini Beach. That was a TFO movie. Wow, he's fucking dipping into everything apparently. This guy's been in a lot. That's more awesome than I would have expected, but yeah, he's been in a lot more TFO stuff than he's in Badass Monster Killer, which my buddy Jawara was in, like starred in, was the main character.
Oh,
I think my brother had a cameo in that movie. Yeah, I'm looking at the cast right now. Like it's a lot of the people that I know personally.
That's very cool.
Yep, there's my brother's. There's my brother's IMDb page. I forgot my brother has an IMDb page.
That's hilarious.
I fucking complete because he was in a bunch of Smosh sketches too, which is a Sacramento-based YouTube channel that blew the fuck up. God, that's fucking fun. I completely forgot my brother has a goddamn fucking IMDb page.
So one of the things, because I'm going to segue back to the show.
Yeah. Sorry, I was geeking out for a minute because it's just cool. It's just cool to see like a logo.
Yeah, it is.
In
It
Star
is cool.
Wars.
That is cool. I do not deny that. One of the things that Boba Fett was talking about, though, he's like, I'd like to ride it. He wants to learn to ride the Rancor, and I can't wait till we get that payoff scene of Boba Fett riding into battle on the back of a Rancor. Rancor just trashing people in front of him, and then he takes off with his jetpack shooting down, raining hell down upon something. That'll just be badass. That's how I'm seeing it play out in my mind.
Yeah.
But yeah, Matt Berry's droid character, 8D8, he says,
I'll never remember that fucking name unless they say it like loudly.
He's like, yeah, the mayor's not available for the next over 20 days. And Fett's like, oh, the fuck he's not. We're going now. So they show up, and of course, you know, the backup gang, they go with Fett. They go to confront the mayor. And the major domo, he is like, oh yeah, let me see if I can go squeeze you in. And locks the door. They break in, and nobody's there, and it leads to a speeder chase. You know, they run out of the front of the building. There he is. He's trying to flee in a speeder, and here's the little cybernetic backup gang that are chasing on their tricked out speeders. And you know, it ends when they catch him. And he's like, all right, the mayor's gone, and he's in alliance with the Pikes. Then you see the Pikes, they get off a Starliner, and Fennec says, they're going to war, and he's like, well, we'll be ready. And that's how it ends. A lot of fun.
Yeah. You had two really, really solid action sequences in this episode. You know, the fight scene and then the speeder chase scene. Mm-hmm. Which is always fun to see. And then you had, I think, more story development in this episode too.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one thing that I was praising this show for last week is like, you're getting a lot of character growth in Boba Fett. You're getting a lot of development because we really never had that much of it before.
Nope. This is my argument every fucking time. Like, every time we talk about Boba Fett outside of the show, it was always like, we never
he's a badass. Oh, yeah? Why is he a badass? Who is he? What has he done?
Yeah, exactly.
Besides stand there and look fucking cool.
Yep. And
got whacked by a blind man with a stick in the jetpack and fell into a giant worm's mouth.
Yeah, like, and I think that to me is the thing that people have such a rough time with the show too, because I've seen a lot of people talk about, like, I hate that he has his helmet off a lot. And it's like, why wouldn't he have his helmet off? Just because we only saw him for a grand total of 5 minutes with his helmet on doesn't inherently mean that he doesn't want it on all the time.
Yeah, he didn't. He wasn't. He didn't grow up in the fucking Mandalorian tribes that believe that, you know, this is the way, you never take your helmet off. You know, he didn't grow up in that culture.
Right. Also, if I'm not mistaken, that's still his dad's armor technically. It's just repainted or whatever.
Yeah, it's Jango Fett's original armor. It's just repainted green instead of silver.
And Jango was barely like Mandalorian in terms of like
but they did establish though that he was true Mandalorian. I do believe in the Mandalorian.
Yeah. He is full on Mandalorian blood from the planet Mandalore. But what I mean is the traditions and the religious connotations. I don't think that
No, he
Django
didn't.
followed that.
He didn't.
Yeah, that's what I mean by that. But
he was just a simple man trying to make his way across the galaxy.
But yeah, I'm really fucking like. I feel like if you were on the fence about Boba Fett, this would have put you on the side of it being a good show. This episode at least, like the fact that the Hutts aren't like a super feared fucking syndicate, and now we're getting more syndicates in the galaxy. That to me is fucking awesome. I would love this show to somehow make it to Coruscant, where I know it's way worse there.
Oh yeah, eventually we might see something like that, but I like the reined in, like close up look in one little sector right now that we're getting.
Oh, sure.
Ultimately, I do want to see some expansion.
Yeah. I was like, I don't think this season's going to do that. I think this season will primarily take place on Tatooine, but I do like how they gave Tatooine a little bit more growth in the planet itself. When Stephen Root's character was like, "Yeah, this planet used to be covered in water," and I'm like, "That's fucking awesome."
Yeah,
because one of the biggest complaints that Star Wars gets is that it doesn't make sense that there are complete individual planets with just one topographical feature. And like there's one planet of this and one planet of that, and it's like a planet would have multiple topographical features.
Oh, absolutely.
And so it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but giving that little bit of like context, it makes sense. And that's the other thing that like it should be clarified. Planets that are habitable wouldn't have one topographical feature.
Yeah.
But like, there was at one point in history where Earth looked like Mustafar, where it was uninhabitable, and it was just like the tectonic plates were going fucking crazy before water was even on the planet. There's look at Mars. We've looked at Mars for years, and Mars has one topographical feature, as far as we can tell, and it's dirt.
Red
It's rust.
fucking dirt.
So it's not out of the realm of total possibility that there would be multiple planets that were one topographical feature, but it's a little harder to put into context when you think about it from the aspect of one topographical feature that's habitable. Like that's you have to add in that second part for it to make sense. But we're also talking Star Wars. There's a whole thing called the Force, and like you just not overthink it. It's Star Wars. But yeah, let's go ahead and get final thoughts on this episode and a grade, and then we'll get the fuck out of here.
Oh, I absolutely give this episode an A. I thought it was a lot of fun. We got some more character development. We got some backstory development. We got some forward development and where the show's going to go. Some more drama created, attention created with the Pikes. Stephen Root's just always a fun cameo, no matter what. Danny Trejo also is a great addition. Love the fact that Robert Rodriguez directed this, and you could tell, it definitely has his style attached to it, especially during the chase scene. That felt very Robert Rodriguez to me. But yeah, I'm enjoying it a whole lot, and I'm excited for next week. I give it an A. What about you?
Yeah, this episode gets a solid A+. I like how it was a bit more condensed. Also, I don't think that episodes need to be as long as an hour like last week's. So it was really nice to see this episode kind of be shorter but more, packed full of content in my opinion. But it was nice also to see all those cameos. It was nice to kind of make this show a little bit more fun, if that makes sense. It felt like it was getting really heavy-handed last week, and I was like, I hope it doesn't stick that way. It was nice, like I said, we got more context to the Tusken Raiders, but it's just long in the tooth, and so this episode was like, Oh no. You're getting a bunch of fucking story, and you're getting progress forward, moving progress forward. So, and now they're building up to a fucking like a war. And
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, this is exciting. So
Yeah. Nothing like crime families going at it.
well, that's the thing about Star Wars that always throws me for a loop is that people will always say certain things like, "Oh, it's just space wizards and like you can't overthink it and yada yada yada." And my argument to that all the time is Star Wars is such a huge universe onto itself that you can tell stories that don't have to do with Jedis. You can tell stories that don't have to do with the Skywalkers. There's tons of ways to tell stories in Star Wars, and to ignore half of those kills me. It's one of the reasons that fucking Rogue One is one of my favorite Star Wars movies because it's a fucking heist movie.
Mm-hmm.
In Star Wars. One of my favorite video games of Star Wars is um drawing a blank on the name of it.
Knights of the Old Republic.
No, Republic Commando.
Oh.
Where you play as a group of clone troopers.
Mm-hmm.
Highly specialized clone troopers, but clone troopers nonetheless. And yeah, I know a lot of people don't like the second movie, rightfully so. But because it sucks, is why I was saying that. But like
By second movie, he means Attack of the Clones, Episode 2.
Yes, sorry. I meant to say episode 2, but I said the second movie. There are a lot of things that come from the prequels that are really good and can be really good. Granted, there's a lot that's also bad, but that's besides the point. And one of those things is Republic Commando. It's a great fucking game. I actually replayed it not too long ago, and I was like, it still holds up. It's still solid. But that game has no Jedis in it. It's literally you just play as clone troopers, and there's a whole story there. Think about Rebels. Rebels was mostly about people who didn't have force powers. I say mostly because it's not entirely, obviously. And I personally am of the mindset that we need more of that in Star Wars. We need less force power stories. I still like Jedi and I still, like force power stuff, but we don't need as much of it as we have had. There's more to tell. And Boba Fett and Mandalorian are showcasing that. Because, Mandalorian is a lone samurai story, right? Lone samurai, it's inspired by primarily Lone Wolf and Cub, but also by like old school samurai movies and a few westerns here and there, but westerns are also inspired by those movies anyway. And now what's Boba Fett? Boba Fett is a fucking crime syndicate movie or show. I keep calling it a movie because it has that quality to me, but so yeah, I'm just excited to see where Boba Fett goes. Like I'm in 100% in. So not that I wasn't prior to this episode, but this episode just cemented it. Anyway, that's gonna do it for us this week, everybody. Next week, obviously, episode or chapter 4 of the Book of Boba Fett, but we're also gonna watch the movie Injustice, which is based off of the video games of the same name, the DC video games.
And comics.
I don't know how much it's like because it started in video games.
I thought the comic came first.
No, they released the comic first, but they made the comic after started production on the game. The game was like it started production about 4 years prior to the comic's release.
Oh.
Yeah, because it was entirely designed to be a fighting game from the get. And they needed a way to make a conflict that, kind of worked. But as a lot of people pointed out, it goes against Superman's character. So there's a lot of that. But
well, I mean, he becomes a totalitarian dictator.
Well, they needed, I don't know if you've played the game. So I don't feel like I'm spoiling anything here. But
I've played the games.
Yeah, you take out not only Superman's, wife and unborn child, but then you also destroy his city. with a nuke, he's gonna be mad. He's gonna be real mad. But straight up, like, punching the Joker's heart out is a whole nother can of worms of a conversation, and we'll get to it next week when we talk about it. But yeah, it's the movie's coming to HBO Max on the 17th. So, and we've heard it's bad, but won't know until we watch it ourselves, and we'll let you know next week what we thought of it. But yeah, like I said, that's it. Make sure you guys let me pull up my notes here. Check out all the socials listed below. That's what we keep in contact with you, or at least try to. We're very forgetful, both of us, about our social medias, but that's also where you'll know when new episodes come out too. So go follow them. Check out the Teespring store. We have a newish design with the art from what's your friend's name that did the art?
William Fong.
Yes. So yeah, the art from William Fong.
Mr. Jet 3000 on Instagram. If you want to hit him up for commissions, he does amazing work.
Yes, he does. There you go. But yeah, so we have that design on the Teespring store entirely. Also, go check out the YouTube channel. That's where you'll be able to watch the live footage, or the not live, but the well, you'll be able to see my face and a picture of Maya. But yeah,
good
watch
picture.
That later.
It's a good picture.
It is. But yeah, that's it. I don't think there's anything else to bring up. So Maya, where can folks find you?
You can find me on Facebook under my name. If you want to follow me on Twitter or Instagram, it's a public profile. They're linked there. You can do so from there. You want to catch me on other shows on other podcasts, you can do so on the Realm of Collectors YouTube channel on Figure Banging every other Wednesday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern. And sometimes on Shelf Gravy on alternating Wednesdays at 9 p.m. Eastern. That's everywhere we can find me. What about you, Greg?
You can follow me on all social medias under Chub Rock Geek. You can go check me out on the Mission Start podcast with Anthony, where we talk about video game stuff. The latest episode that's up is about the Game Awards, which aired in December. That's currently live, as far as I know. So if you want to go check that out, that's Mission Start podcast, where you listen to your podcast. But yeah, that's it for me. Thank you guys so much for listening. Again, Book of Boba Fett episode 4, and Injustice, the DC animated movie on HBO Max. And we'll see you next week.
Take care, everybody.